My name is Ranjini Joshua. I am the owner of the Silver Telegram. I've been doing PR for the last 20 years. I've been going to CES for the last 20 years. I've been in tech PR.
Welcome to the PR Playbook Podcast, the only podcast giving you actionable skills and advice you need to execute a strategic PR program. Warning: what you hear next may lead to brand awareness and increased sales and customer exposure. Now here's your host, Ranjini Joshua.
For the last 12 years, I've owned the Silver Telegram, and we've been helping clients, both consumer and B2B, get more media visibility and brand visibility. And so I've been excited and waiting to have this conversation. I'm also going to turn this into a podcast, but I love sharing tips and tricks and secrets. It's just my jam. So I'm really excited to kind of share this all with you. These are some of the folks that we've helped in the past, and we've been going to CES and doing all kinds of crazy media stuff. So today I'm just going to really lift the veil of PR. And I don't know if people won't like that or not, but today we're going to cover pre-show preparation. We're going to cover during the show preparation, or during the show, what you should be doing, and then following up what you should be doing. And some of it might seem a little obvious to you, but I'm just going to cover everything because I think what's obvious to one person isn't obvious to another person. And so I am just really eager to make sure that I'm covering all the bases. So I'm not questioning anyone's intelligence or experience at CES. This has been my experiences at CES. And so I just want to make sure that I cover all the bases. And again, if you have questions, you can shoot them to me, ranjini@thesilvertelegram.com. Or if there's another piece of something that I missed, I'd love to interview you and talk about it on the PR Playbook podcast, which is our podcast that we have. I will cover the best of everything that I can to give you all the juice possible, all the tea, all the water that I'm drinking right now. All right. So pre-show planning. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. We all love that quote. I think this is something that's happening right now, and it's very, very critical. Sometimes people slap things together, especially when you're a smaller booth, when you're a smaller company or a startup, and it kind of goes by the wayside. Then the holidays come around and things get really chaotic real quickly. So it's really important to set aside a couple of hours to really plan your goals for the show, whether it's marketing, PR, business development, messaging. I think it's really important to streamline and create a line of consistency between all those different departments. And that's one of the things that I've seen fail in the past with clients, is that everybody's a little bit disjointed. And so you really have to come together, have a group meeting. If you're the one to call that meeting, do it. I encourage it at least one or two or one a month until the show comes. It's very, very important. We suggest, and we typically, when we kick off and do stuff, create a first mainline messaging for everybody. Hey, this is our key messages for the show. This is what we want people to feel and take away when we leave CES. And that means the media, that means partners, that means customers, that means just stakeholders in general. So what we typically create, and I'm just sharing this with you so you can maybe come up with something. And I actually have a checklist I will be sharing with you guys as a follow-up item. So watch out for that checklist. So a timeline and checklist for each month I do. Mainstream, team, and brand messaging. This is something that should be reviewed before you guys head over to CES. Media marketing and new business goals. So I usually identify 3 to 4 goals, loose goals or hard goals. If you need numbers, then use numbers, use UTMs, use, number goals, how many pieces of coverage, how many interviews you want to have, how many sales calls you want to have, or sales meetings you want to have, that kind of stuff. So set those up in advance. This is kind of like, I don't know, business development 101, but I just want to say everything. And then establish a portal manager. I think one of the biggest things I find is that the exhibitor portal, if you are an exhibitor, is very poorly managed. I've gone through the entire exhibitor list, and I've seen 60 to 70% of them do not fill it out properly. And that could be a gateway to a lot of media. You can actually upload your press kit there. You can upload your press releases. You can have all the information that you need for sales, biz dev, PR. So make sure you have someone who's managing that is uploading those assets. I would also say create your own asset folder as well on like we use Google Drive, but well, I know a lot of companies are using Microsoft Office and stuff for security. So if it's Dropbox or if it's something else, find a place that's your own to store your own press kit, media kit, marketing materials, brochures, something with an easy link. And we're going to talk about what to do with that link. Canva actually now offers these like kind of drive style things now if you're designing something like a brochure. So we're going to talk about some cool things that you might be able to do going forward. So pre-show messaging strategy. So right now we're in the pre-show section. We're coming up with strategy and messaging, and it can be very creative. When we're talking in relation to PR, sometimes we have great product launch news, right? And then sometimes we think we're going to have a customer and we get really excited and it happens and we get huge news. And then sometimes we think we're going to have a customer and it doesn't happen and it's very disappointing. And then last but not least, we don't have anything and we have to just make something up. There is a way to make anything exciting. What I would say is, what is the first, what is the unique angle your brand can take? Okay. Try to focus on something that's, first, only, better, best, which is our kind of like rule of thumb when it comes to press releases and announcements. Don't clickbait the media. They will not appreciate it. So let's not like over exaggerate or lie. We're not that needy. There's other ways to get press. But if you can make it kind of glamorous, I'm working with a client right now to really kind of showcase what they're doing with their technology innovation. It's really interesting, but it's very hard to explain in layman's terms. And so that's what we're doing. We're kind of dwindling it down. And I always tell people that your grandmother should understand what the headline is. She should understand to some degree, not to a technical degree. She should understand what you're doing and what it means at a higher level. Create news with credibility, data, or assets behind it. So this is something that you can do if you don't have a lot of news. You can use surveys, you can use internal data, you can use milestones, you can use iterations of your product that you haven't announced before, which is something we've done. And I think we'll talk about it a little bit in the coming slides. So you can make something out of nothing or something out of something you haven't said before. I know, it's very cryptic. But if you aren't sure if you have something or not, again, shoot it to me, email me, ronjini@thesilvertelegram.com. I do have like a Calendly link for like a 30-minute strategy meeting. I'm happy to do it just to help you uncover that. So there is a lot of opportunities. Maybe it's something you haven't thought of before. Maybe it's a customer case study or announcement. Maybe it's something that's industry related. So really dig deep. I also suggest that you kind of talk to your sales team and ask them what's working and maybe use that as a topic. So the sales team can be a really great place for gold. So nail this information down first. What are you going to say? What is the message you're going to share? And share it with your team and make a plan around this particular message. You can use it for media outreach, biz dev, partner outreach. So one of the things, again, that I mentioned is that people don't streamline their messaging. And so every department doing something else. Let's not work harder. Let's work smarter and work together. And I think it'll be just a better collaborative experience and create some kind of brand consistency when you're speaking with the press and when you're speaking with partners and when you're speaking with everyone. You guys are all talking the same language. What's something that you guys can come together on and agree on, right? This is what I'm just saying. Streamlining your messaging creates repetition and brand consistency. It's been a crazy week. So some of this I might be like just materializing as I talk. So pre-show logistics, I'm going to just real quickly, here we go. I'm going to open my chat. And if you guys have questions, I have the Q&A open. So if you feel free to dump it in there. Pre-show logistics and planning. So first thing, we're going to get into the nitty gritty, but these are some little things that maybe you haven't thought of and kind of suck when you get there. Make reservations before you go. Reservations at restaurants. The restaurants get booked up. Your customer wants a meeting. Just make a reservation. Most of these reservations are free on Open Table. Make a reservation for every night at a restaurant and just have it available. My suggestion is doing nothing before 6:00. It's really hard to get around right after the show floor closes. It's chaotic. There's no Ubers or there's a huge line. Not everybody's taking the metro. So I would say 6:00, but yeah, make reservations before you go. Just make the reservation for every night. Sometimes I do that and you don't use it. That's fine. They don't charge you. It's just, you have something if you need it. make it for larger than the party that you think it's going to be. Some great restaurants include Yardbird, that's my favorite. I love going there. I don't have a lot of barbecues. So when I go to Las Vegas, I love going to Yardbird. Hell's Kitchen's amazing. It's on the strip, very busy. Momofuku, very busy. Also, the Cosmopolitan has 5 or 6 great restaurants that you can book at, and they're all like in the same group. So you could just book a restaurant every night, like I said, from one page. So do this reservations before you go. I know it sounds silly, but once you get there, you'll be so much happier you did it. And someone will say, "Hey, does anybody have a reservation?" And you can raise your hand and be the winner. Party list, another thing people put on the back burner. So there is this list, and everyone that is attending or registered is going to get this deck. So you'll have this link, the CESbible.com. There's a bunch of different CES resources on that website, but they have the CES 2024 party list. And so you can RSVP to those parties. And a lot of those get booked up around November, December. Again, register early. Do it even, especially the free ones. Register even if you don't know if you're going to go or not, because it's better to have it than not. I also always do a +1 and just put my name twice if it's Eventbrite or whatever. Use FedEx and Starbucks before you get there. And what I mean by before you get there, before you get to the show floor, don't try to go to Starbucks. I mean, you can go to Starbucks. Everyone ends up going to Starbucks at some point at the show, but the line is huge and nobody likes it. So try to find one that's local, that's nearby. I don't know how many of you typically drive. I always like to have a car because I'll have a story about that a little bit later. But I tend to end up being the Uber, and that kind of bodes well for me because people need rides. It's great for us because if it's a journalist, we can give them a ride somewhere and gain their favor a little bit. And Las Vegas is pretty quick and easy to navigate. So if you have a car or you live in LA or you rented a car, I highly recommend it. And I usually stay off the strip. So that isn't usually an issue. But if you have not identified a FedEx or Starbucks, my favorite FedEx is 395 Hughes Center Drive. It is big enough to work in. It is not busy and not too busy to help you. I know the last 2 years have been a little bit of a conundrum because it was 1 year there was nobody. So I'm going to say this is 2024 coming up. So 2022, there was practically nobody there. 2021, there was no CES. 2023, it was just starting to rebuild. So, but this Hughes Center Drive, they are prepared. They're awesome. You can send them something. They do it quickly. They're just amazing. So mark that down. 395 Hughes Center Drive. It's next to Gordon Beer Brewery. That's awesome. Arrive early. If you can arrive at the venue early, do it. Try not to stay out too late. I sound like mom, but this can benefit you in many ways. For me, it's usually parking, great parking opportunities. I park next to the bagel shop and it's $20. So I factor that into my budget and then I just walk. And now that the convention center has expanded, it's a lot quicker to get to the convention center and it's cold. So you get nice heat. Media opportunities early in the morning are really great, especially with broadcast. So we're going to talk about media opportunities in depth. And then there is a quieter show floor if you want to have meetings with partners or customers. A breakfast meeting in the North Hall, there's a Starbucks and a breakfast place, and it's very busy. However, it could be a great place to have a meeting in the morning. I encourage morning meetings with journalists. Everybody's got to eat and everybody wants to have breakfast. If you could do it off the strip, give them a ride. That's great. If not, I would suggest this it's like a cafeteria. And I think anybody who has gone there knows what I'm talking about in the North Hall. At the Venetian, there's this really great yogurt place, but I'm not sure if it exists anymore, but it's on the way to the expo center. Actually, I feel like it's gone. Once you get close to the Starbucks, that's when everything gets crazy. So if you do have a booth, bars, fruit, water, and caffeine, these are the essentials for your booth. I know it's very mom vibes, but I like to tell people to get this stuff situated. I go to Walmart as soon as I get to Vegas and stock up and make sure that we have our daily needs so that you don't have to leave the booth or that you don't have to pay an exorbitant amount or wait in a 1 hour Starbucks line. Okay. Now into some logistics. Issuing a press release for CES. Is that something you want to do? That is a question for the ages. If you're a small brand, it's very difficult. If you're doing something crazy innovative, then yes, I raise my hand for you to do it. The question would be before, during, or after the show. So never after, because after the show, there are a series of other trade shows. NRF, HIMSS, outdoor retailer. People are on the go after CES. So you really want to get things in December before. So before the Christmas week, this week, Christmas is, I think, on a weekend. So it would have to be that week before. I think it's something in the teens. That would be the last opportunity for you to do briefings and maybe like do a press release beforehand. And if you want people, if you want to attract people to your booth to see your new product, I would do that. Or maybe do it under embargo and say, hey, we're going to launch at the show. We'd love to talk to you before the show so that you can get that news. Or you can get them to come see your product at CES. So it's kind of like a media lead gen. If you're doing it during, I say do it early. So you could do it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, preferably. And then this year, because CES is in the second week, you could do it the week before just to draw some more attention. So, I mean, the timing of CES has never been like a great thing for anyone. So that's something that we all have to deal with. But if you are going to do it, I say do it early. We're going to talk a little bit about press conferences in a bit. So make sure that you do it early and that you're following up. I'm going to talk about all these details. Okay. Make sure that when you get the press list, which is typically the week before the first week of December, and some of this might be, again, I might be doubling up. Sorry. I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss anything. The first week of December, you'll get the media list if you are an exhibitor. If you're not an exhibitor and you want the media list, there could be ways to get that. So keep your feelers out for other exhibitors, friends, the Silver Telegram. There could be ways to get that, but you really want to, be mindful when you're reaching out. So that's another thing is mindfully using that press list. Comb through the media list to highlight key targets. Everybody on the media list is not going to be your target. There's 3,500 media on this list from all over the world. You want to really focus on company media outlets that are from your country or your target regions. So make sure that you're going through and doing that. And I think you can actually filter them by country. So that's typically what I do first. And then I start going through which outlets we're looking for, like which target outlets would I want to generate a media list for. And then I just find out who's attending from there. So I would start coming through the media list and highlighting the targets early. I will tell you that every week there is an updated media list and they do provide the date of when it's been updated. So you will know if that person is new on the list or not. And so make sure you're downloading the list. I wouldn't say every week, but like every 2 weeks, starting the first week of December. If you do have a press release planned, send it before it goes out with the embargo date. So we talk about embargoes and exclusives in some of my podcasts. So if you look at the PR Playbook podcast, you can look at the podcast about embargoes and exclusive, what that means. But do never send anything out unless someone has agreed to an embargo. PR 101. Make sure that they agree to the embargo before if it's very important to you. Sometimes it's not as important as you think to have an embargo date. Sometimes it's nice to have a little teaser. So just depending on who you're talking to and unless your investors are going to get upset with you, I would just send it out with an embargo date. Make sure you get agreements beforehand and then work with that press. So I have a quick question from an anonymous attendee. So the question is, you send the press release when you reach out to a reporter for the first time? No. No. What you want to do is warm them up a little bit. First, you want to see if they're going to be interested. So the way I would do it, if you have a press release, the way I would do it, I would say, hey, we have news coming out. It's around this topic area. Would you be interested? Can I send it to you? It's for CES. Can you honor an embargo? Just literally ask them that. And then if they say, yeah, sure, please send it to me, I'll honor the embargo, which is what most 90% of media will say if they're interested, then you send it. So make sure that you get that agreement beforehand and also make sure they're interested, right, beforehand. So you don't want to just send it blind because they have no loyalty to you. And I will tell you, you send a press release to Wall Street Journal, they're going to publish it. So they don't really do embargoes in general. So like publications like that, I mean, obviously that's Wall Street Journal, but that's an example of somebody who does not honor embargo. So you just want to ask them first and it's pretty standard. So they will be okay. Another question I had is how far in advance from CES? You don't want to do it too early because they're going to put you in the CES bucket, right? So you don't want them to forget about you. Also, if you're not following up. And I know marketing managers and PR people and CEOs and founders, everybody has like 500 things to do. So you may forget to follow up. So I would say I usually do my last outreach the week before Christmas. And then this year, I would send a reminder the first week of the year because we have that whole buffer week. Because I think New Year's Day is on a Monday. I would send it the Wednesday before and then follow up that way. So not too far in advance, 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, by the week of the 20th ish, people are going to have their idea of what they're going to do. So I hope that answers your question. And then when you are ready to issue the press release, make sure you do it. And you also send back out email to the people that you target when you're highlighting the list beforehand. So literally, you would maybe put it out on the wire. We can talk about the wire if anybody has questions about that, but you can put it on the PR Newswire. But since you have this amazing CES exhibitor list, send it out individually. Send it out individually to those people. Say, hey, this came out this morning. Here's the press kit. If you have any questions, we're here. We're at booth this. And then also sometimes when we are next to bigger booths or things that are like, markers, I would say we're next to the, I don't know, Samsung booth, or, we're next to this huge helicopter, whatever you're next to at that point. And I know it's really hard to find those markers until you get there on the show floor. But do that, identify those early so that you can tell them where you are and they can find you. And then I would say make sure that you're monitoring for media coverage daily. The other caveat to this is CES press coverage comes out the entirety of January. So if you didn't get it immediately, that doesn't mean you're not going to get it. It may mean you're in the queue. It's all about how you follow up and how you stay persistent. And we're going to have some more stuff on media relations. So tip number one, make sure you get the list first week of December in your exhibitor portal. Tip number two, when you're at the show, make sure you identify the media badge colors. So media badges are going to be a different color, green, orange. It says media on it. The media has now started doing a tricky thing because a lot of them are also exhibitors. So sometimes they're an exhibitor. So that's kind of tricky. But if they're an exhibitor holding a humongous camera, you kind of know that they're the media. So it's a little bit tricky, but yes, you can identify media badge colors early so that you can target them and make sure that we call it like sleuthing. We're doing a lot of detective work as PR people. We kind of look crazy on the show floor. We're just like hyper targeted on the badge. So you know what a PR person is if they're looking at your badge real hard. Number three, media stages and pre-show content starts booking and recording in October. That's right. It is October 19th today. They are booking. They are booking. CNET is booking their pre-show. TechCrunch is booking their pre-show. PC Magazine, I think, is booking their pre-show. So a lot of these people are booking in advance. If you have contacts there, reach out now. If you have last year's press list, reach out now. If you don't know who to reach out to, look for the editor-in-chief or producer, show producer at those places, because they are booking their CES content now, and you're going to miss it. Once you get to the show, it might be too late. They book very early. Caveat is I would still pursue them when you're on site because sometimes people fall through. Oh, I see a question popping in. I'm going to do these live because I think the flow is better. Is it true that reporters are going to CES already know which booths they're going to visit and already have these stories written? Very good question. And we're going to be answering these in the next couple slides. They do know who they're going to meet for the most part, which is why we have to start booking early. We start booking November, December. They do not have their stories written because they don't know what they're going to get unless you've given them the materials already. So I wouldn't say they have their stories written. They're writing every night. They're publishing every day, a lot of them. And then some of them wait and then publish the next week, or they stock up a pile of stories. So they're writing constantly, but they do have a lot of the stuff booked in. And so that's why that's what PR people do. I mean, us as a PR people, like we schedule in advance all the meetings. So that's another, pain in the butt for people who are kind of DIYing all of this. But if you can do at least half of this stuff, you will get results, I promise. What is the media stages and pre-show content? It's CES content. That's a great question. And it's just interviews with founders, interviews about launches. So if you have a product launch, this is the target for you. If you have a really crazy innovative founder, that's also a target for you. So if you want to get on CNET TV, TechCrunch TV, Engadget TV, all those places, you're going to have to start looking at that and preparing your narrative around that. That's part of the messaging. On-site media ops. This is the last one in this section. I'm going to get to that last question in a second. On-site media ops, and this actually follows that question as well. I get there early, and on the very first day at 7 or 8 a.m., if you're an exhibitor, you have show access very early in the morning. The broadcasters are there 6 o'clock. They're broadcasting by 6 a.m. Pacific time. So I get there with a card, information about my launch, product, booth, whatever spiel I have at that moment. I have this card. I have contact information on there. I have a QR code. I have the media kit, and I go to those booths and hand it to them personally and just tell them, hey, look, we have this product. If it's a really cool product, I take it with me. One year I had October, which is one of the ones that you mentioned here. It's like an educational technology. It's kids' toy that is reading and interactive. And we took October and they took them and they're like, can we have them for the day? And we can feature them on, 8 o'clock and come back and get them at 12. So you can get those opportunities on site. However, not all of those are like that. You're combing the media list. The media list is really important and I know it's exhaustive, but that's how you book. You find the producers or show bookers. The titles are on the media list. You can find those. And then same thing with if you don't have the media list, you can actually go to the target media outlet if you know. I will tell you, like, if you're not totally sure who you're targeting or who you're looking for, look up 2023 media coverage from CES. You could just do that in Google and put date range. I would put the date range from November 2022 to January 30th, 2023. And you can see all that CES coverage and you can see the producers and the hosts. So the hosts and producers are going to be the ones that book or the booking agent. If you want to use a resource, we use something called Muckrack, but there's a lot of other tools. Cision is another tool. And so you're looking for the producer, booker. Lastly, maybe the host, because sometimes the host is also a reporter. Reminders. Send the media reminders before the show. So you're booking, you're scheduling, you do it in December. Week before the show comes, make sure you send reminders. Same thing with biz dev, sales, all that kind of stuff. Send reminders for everything. Send reminders to your team. It's just incredible how people forget everything last minute. So send reminders to everybody and make sure that you guys are all on the same page and make sure you're having a weekly regroup on messaging, on meetings, on all those things. Block them into a calendar. We usually do something on Google Sheets and make sure that everybody has a shared calendar so we're doing it properly. Okay, pre-show media opportunities. First thing first, finalize what you want to say and what you want from the media. What's your call to action? Where are you sending them? Do you have a new product? Are you talking about innovation? Are you talking about a CEO? What are you saying? If you can pitch from last year's list, do it and start early. We talked about that. Pitching starts in October for pre-show coverage. Secure meetings as early as you can, but the sweet spot is the first week of December. We all know who's going. You don't really need the media list, but the temperature of the media is shifting so fast these days. So there's a lot of people who are leaving, going to other places. I mean, Muckrock is like my ultimate tool. But yeah, you can check the website, check Twitter, check LinkedIn. It's a little challenging and time consuming, but I think if you're a little bit diligent, you should be able to find. Okay. When you're scheduling, if you are scheduling, in fact, so first, second week of December, usually the sweet spots of scheduling. When you're scheduling, try to get phone numbers. I know it's so hard to ask for a phone number, but if a media person is really interested, they'll give it to you and then you could text them. And usually what I found in the last few years is very useful because they gave you the number because they're very interested and they don't want to not find you. And typically what I do is every morning. So if we schedule a bunch of meetings the night before, so we send reminders the week before, and then we send reminders the night before with those like significant markers of like where we are, a map highlighting where we are, showing them. So like there's no reason, you've left no stone unturned on why they should how they should find you and meeting with you. So I mean, this is a PR kind of thing is we're very, very diligent and kind of exhaustively annoying, but that's our job. Use a show map to highlight the spot on the show floor when booking and then making it as easy as possible for journalists to show up, right? We don't want them to have a reason not to show up. Okay, I got a question earlier. What exactly is a December preview? I'm gonna answer that. I'll answer that if we have time at the end. I just want to make sure I want to be mindful of her time. I know we have a lot to get through, so I want to keep going. But just in short, the December preview, and you can always shoot me an email if you have like specific questions. I'm happy to do it. It's basically you're giving a preview of whatever you're going to do at CES in December, and you're kind of encouraging them to come meet you, coaxing them with a breakfast or a lunch or a dinner or a drink or coffee, whatever. So it's just a preview of what you're going to be doing. All right. I wanted to give this Uber rides example. So I was talking about having a car there. One of the things I did was offered rides to some of the journalists. So I said, "Hey, if you meet with us, we're happy to give you a ride wherever you need to go." Because the one of the biggest annoying things at CES is the vastness of the show. There's the North Hall, there's the South Hall, there's the West Hall, there's the Venetian. It's like just madness. And usually what ends up happening is you're at the main conference for one day, you're at the Venetian another day. You're at, where else do they have it? Aria another day. So I think it's just people pick days where they're going to be at that location. So if you can provide a ride or if they're feeling stressed, and you could tell usually if they're in a conversation with you, you could say, "Hey, look, we're happy to give you a ride or give you a free Uber or something like that." I mean, whatever works, right? You're kind of whining and dining these guys in a different kind of digital way or modern way, I guess. That's only if it comes up. Okay. So pre-show press conference opportunities. One thing that people overlook and maybe don't know about, all exhibitors have an opportunity to have a power session or a press conference add-on. Power sessions are about $500, and then press conference, I want to say it's 1250, but it's between 1,000 and 1,500. These are intensely valuable ways to augment your presence at CES. If you are an exhibitor, just apply today. And you know what? Actually, I am going to give you guys right here in the chat. If you're an exhibitor, go ahead and apply today. Please don't worry about the $500. It's going to be worth it. So basically what a media day is for you to have the opportunity to do a press conference. It could be 30 minutes and it could be an hour. The press conference is like the more exhaustive one. You have control of the room for like 2 or 3 hours. Power session is something that's very quick. You go up there, you make your announcement, but you can schedule it. I would say the earlier, the better. Create media invitations for that with an RSVP requests. You get captive audiences at the press day. It's amazing. It's the Venetian ballrooms. And you come prepared, you'll actually probably get a lot more media than you originally expected. So I think it's really, really worth that money. You're already spending money. So this $500 is nothing compared to that. So definitely do it. And then make sure there's time to speak with the press afterwards. Follow up with that list with the media kit that you might have already created. Showstoppers and PepCom. I know it's always a question I get from people. Is this worth it? Or I'm doing this instead of Eureka Park. It is worth it if you're not exhibiting at CES already. It's definitely worth it. Mind you, it's a few hours. It's $6,000 minimum for a few hours. And mostly the journalists are there to get some food and some drinks. And you have about 3 to 4 minutes to talk to them. And again, back to the question that someone asked before, is it true that they already know some of them already know what they're going to look at there? Because they'll say, "Hey, are you going to be at PepCom or Showstoppers when we're booking?" And then he's like, "Well, I'll just stop by when we're there." People are not going to set time slots at those events. They'll say, "Okay, we're just going to stop by." So they have their own media RSVP list. My language is going crazy now. They have their own RSVP list. And so if you are registered for those events and you pay for it, the starting price for PepCom is 6,000. I think Showstoppers is a little bit more. They'll give you the RSVP list, and then they will allow you to email them. So I'm going to answer this question. What is Showstoppers and PepCom? These are events for it's a media only event for product launches, I would say, or brands that have big news. And they're like, a 6-foot table. You get a table with a drape and you can showcase your product to a room full of just media. And it's usually about 500 media attendees. I want to say, like, results wise, the RSVP list is usually bigger, but I would say results wise, it's about 500 to 600 attendees. It's like a 3-hour event, cocktail event. There's food, there's cocktails. The media come in, they make a big circle. It's in a ballroom at the Venetian, and then they check out your product. And that is an opportunity if you have decided not to exhibit, I think is a great opportunity. If you have a lot of money to spend, also, that's a great opportunity. So if you don't have a booth at the show, or if you have lots of extra money, that's another way to get a captive media audience. However, if you are going to be in Eureka Park, leverage your Eureka Park booth. Do not spend, my opinions, do not spend this extra $6,000 when you can use that $6,000 for something much better. I work with so many startups that are always counting their pennies, and I just would hate for them to be disappointed to do this because they're going to be like, well, didn't you actually get me as much press as I thought it was going to? Because they're just there mingling, really. So don't take that space for granted. If you do get it, you really have to work hard for that coverage if you're there. And they are mostly all media, some analysts, but again, like it's a very different vibe. It's usually the first 2 days pre-day of the show and the first day of the show. They used to be the same day, which was like trying to be really competitive, but I think they've negotiated being on different days now. Okay, during the show, uncovering media opportunities. So we talked actually about this already. Broadcast tower and podcasts. So there is the broadcast towers in the North Hall of the Convention Center. They're also in the Venetian. They're also in the South Hall. You can actually walk around and seeing them. You see people with lights and stuff like that. And the podcast, you can see people with microphones, kind of like this one. Go up to them. There is a booker and there might be an opening. And I would just don't be shy. You just have to take a chance. Go up to them and talk to them. Day one and day two is when all the big guys are there. They start packing up on day three. They're out of there. They're like, okay, we got what we needed from CES. We're out. So that's why I say the very first day, 7 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, go and see if you can get in there if you haven't already booked them through email. Best of CES is something. So obviously there's a CES Innovation Award. Those are done. Those finished in April. You can't submit for those. But there is Best of CES awards. There's Best of CES news recaps for companies that are launching new things. And so I have a short list here: Android Authority, CNET, CNN, Engadget, PC Magazine, Tom's Guide, Wired. These publications and BBC, I think, also has it. So they have it in a various amount of ways. Some of them have awards. So like CNET has like Editor's Choice Awards. PC Magazine has an Editor's Choice Award. And then some of them are just recaps, roundup coverage, which I call, it's roundups, basically naming 4 or 5 companies in one piece, saying like, this is the coolest stuff we saw at CES. So keep mindful that those opportunities happen at the show, during the show. They're not really like, the fact that they're doing it is pre-planned, but the content is not pre-planned. They're looking for things that stand out at the show. What's looking popular? So having a lot of people at your booth, also a great thing. Make sure you're keeping it active. You have to look interested in people if you want them to come to you. So, stand up. Don't be in your phone unless you have to be. I mean, this is what PR people do. Like, I basically don't sit down for 8 hours. And we're inviting people in, even if they're not media, just for the booth to look busy, because that helps the optics of everything. Sleuthing, that's where our specialty is, and camera spotting. So make sure you're looking for those media badges and you're looking for cameras, now microphones, or just even cell phones. It's a little bit harder the more digital we get, because people are using all these little micro devices, but just keep an eye out for those people that look like they could be covering something. No publication at CES is too small. Just everybody's looking at CES coverage all the time. Get everything you can. It's all about quantity when you get there. It's all about quantity. I mean, quality, yes, of course, is always better, but the more the better at this show. I cannot stress that enough. Don't think someone's too small for you, unless they're like totally down the different a path, but like, don't think anyone's too small for you. Watch for coverage. So if you could just do a quick monitoring for coverage, what was hot last night, what was hot this morning before you go to the show, you can speak to that at the show floor. You could speak to that with other people. So sales meetings, partnership meetings, you just have a pulse on CES while you're there. And then also, if you see something that actually relates to you, you could do a follow-up email, maybe even after CES. Just keep these tabs going. And I know it's a lot of work, but that's what CES is. And it's so funny because whenever people ask me about CES, I always tell them like, yeah, I like CES. It's really cool to go see all this cool stuff, but it's exhausting. Tip I didn't mention is take those vitamin C packs, airborne. Make sure you're staying healthy, getting enough rest. Las Vegas is just a terrible place for a trade show, especially one to this magnitude. Okay, during at your booth, you want to make sure you review your messaging the first day. Make sure you have a schedule. Talk to everybody at your booth first thing in the morning. If nobody shows up early on any other day, get them to show up early on day one, please. Please, please, please. I cannot stand it. And maybe that's just me as a PR person and someone who hates to be late. I cannot stand it when I see my booth empty. My client's booth is empty. I'm the only one there and the show's starting in 5 minutes. That is such a bad look. And I've had people press show up during their scheduled meeting times and everyone's kind of hungover or sleepy or whatever the case may be. If you're not late on any other day, don't be late on day one. Okay. Make sure you review messaging with your entire team, identify the spokespeople, make sure there's a spokesperson that's specific for media and that person's sought out for every media opportunity. It's usually going to be the CEO, the founder, product manager, or marketing person. Nobody wants to talk to the marketing person. So it's usually CEO, founder, product manager. And you want them to have those key points down. Agree on break times. Make sure, I mean, this is like kind of like family life, but make sure people know where you're going. If you're going to the bathroom, just let them know I'm going to be back in 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever the case may be. But communication is very key, especially when you're trying to capture as much media attention as possible. And then if it's super slow, obviously you're not going to have these problems. Always approach when you see a media badge. Always just say hello at least. At least make them, and a lot of times media will walk by and they're just like kind of looking at the sign and you're like, would you like to hear about what we're doing? Just invite them in. Another really cool thing that we've done over the last couple years that have been so useful is create just like it's almost like a business card. And you can do this at FedEx. You can do it, you know, while you're there, even we've done it on site. Create a QR code that goes to your media kit, make it on Canva, put the name of your company, your one sentence mission, value proposition, differentiator, and media contact or regular contact information on the back. That media card is going to be so great for all the media interviews you have, for anybody you want to give it to. And it has saved us so many times. Make sure you have your booth number on there. I actually created one media card with like a notes section and we kept it on map paper so they can write on it, write notes. But that QR code and that card just for that media kit is actually very great. And I know it's paper, but it actually just has saved us so many times. I always follow up with the media that same night, but you know, less is more. And again, you don't want them to have any reason to lose your information. Post event recap and report. Hopefully, I'm almost done, guys. I know it's been a long, informative meeting. So you want your post event recap and reporting to be really holistic. You can track so many things. You can do QR codes for sales or business leads. You can do UTMs for your press release, tracking links, unique tracking links for your press releases. You can make sure that you're following up every day. You can count your media monitoring and coverage. So make sure you could, monitor stop bys, use a clicker. I don't know, whatever you need to do, capture as much information as you can. Usually my team, what they do is take pictures of badges. I'm very old school. I like to write. So I just write down who it was, the outlet person. I just look at their badge. I don't even ask permission. I just take down the information. But sometimes, you already know who's coming. So I usually have a printed schedule and I'm checking people off as they come. But yeah, have all these things handy. Have a notepad handy for written things and make sure that you have like if you're not getting the scanner or whatever, whatnot, you're taking pictures of the badges or you're writing down who's coming by or you're making sure you're getting their information. I mean, these are really like easy things that you can miss during the conference that can make such a big difference when you're following up. And following up is key. I am the champion of following up. Timeline events. So I kind of position this based on the fact that this is October 19th. But November is really when you're finalizing everything, getting ready to pitch, and making sure that you're good to go with all your logistics and everything. December, full steam pitching. full steam marketing. Make sure you got everything ready to go before the holidays. Do not fail to do this. I'm going to send everybody a checklist and hopefully that will help. But yeah, don't fail to do this. And it might have stuff that you don't need, but better to have more than less. More than less. And then January, full steam on actual activation and then follow up. Make sure you're following up. So I'm going to ask if you guys have any other questions. I appreciate all the questions that have been answered. And I know I kind of spent through this. So anybody who's listening on demand, you might want to go halftime. We do have support, and that's the next slide. But before that, I just want to answer any other questions that people might have. I feel like I did a pretty good job of covering a lot of things you may know and a lot of things you may not know at CES. The thing I love best about it is that it's just such a great opportunity to set yourself up for the entire year. We've had clients garner coverage the whole year afterwards. We have had some great case studies on clients that we worked with last year. We did a press conference, made something out of nothing, and we've got 59 pieces of media coverage, 24 interviews, and we got on later that year CNN, Fox Business. So it's just so essential to be at the show ready to go. I see here a question. How necessary is it to work with a PR agency for CES? They're really costly and we're just starting, of course. It's as necessary as you feel like you want to book stuff, right? Like it is, depending on what agency you go with, their cost differs. We have, I guess I'll just show you guys. We have 3 different packages: CES Lite, which is pitching and scheduling. We have CES Basic, which is a little bit more in depth than that. We create like all these materials for you. And then Premium, which is on-site support. But it's not necessary. That's why I'm doing this thing. It's just a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But if you have someone and you guys clearly kind of come up with some messaging and define what kind of media you want to meet at the show and who's going to be your target and just work on those, like scan those out of the media list, because that media list, it's a beast. And if you guys want to do a strategy meeting, I'm so happy to do it. So email me. But yeah, it's not, you don't need a PR agency, but if you want to be effective, I would say having at least a small team or a CES light kind of package is something that can really help manage the load, which is quite a bit. A lot of follow up. It's like it's a whole nother job. Another question. How do you approach a media person on the floor at CES? Good question. What do I say that will make them interested in doing a piece on us, given that they might have a lot of people selling to them? So that's a great question. Look, they know people are there to approach them. So what I typically go up with is, have you heard of our company? And this is what we're doing. This is what we're announcing at the show. I usually lead with the announcement. Hey, did you hear about the announcement that we had yesterday or this morning or whatever? If you have a product, you could stick it in their face. If you can invite them to try a demo. If it's a cool demo, hey, do you have a minute? We really want to show you this demo. It may or may not go anywhere, right? All of these meetings does not mean you're going to get the coverage from them. If you can get 80% coverage, that is a win in my book. But just use whatever you've got. I mean, that's the only thing we can do, because you don't necessarily know who that person is at that moment. But if they're pausing or stalling or looking for something, just dive right in there and say, hey, did you hear about our announcement? This is what we're announcing at the show. That would be my first go-to, which is why I encourage everyone to have an announcement at CES, because it's a talking point, right? And then if you have a demo or product, that would be the second thing, or not second thing, but another tool that you can use. Hey, I'd love to show you a demo of how this works. Or, hey, you look like you could use a pick me up. Here's a piece of candy. I don't know. There's a lot of, funny ways that you can get into people, but those are the first 2: press release, demo, and then some kind of luring tactic that you would use. So I hope that answers that question. So us in the Silver Telegram, we have 3 packages, one that's super light, again, covering just the basic pitching, and then one that's basic, but also enhances to whatever you're actually doing with your business. And we can actually create another custom media list of people who might not be at CES. And then we have the premium, which is like on-site support. You want us to handle everything, we're happy to do it. If you're not sure about anything and you still have lots of questions about CES and you feel like you're overwhelmed, which I can totally understand, I'm happy to help you DIY it, or anything else you need. My email is right here. My direct phone number is right there. Probably don't call because I get a lot of spam calls and ignore them, but you could call or text me, or you can email me and we can set up a quick strategy meeting and see what opportunities might be there that you haven't thought of or that you might need some help with. And I really appreciate you guys joining me today. I've had a great time. I hope I covered Restream and everything well. And yeah, I appreciate you joining me. If you guys have questions, please reach out to me at Ranjini at thesilvertelegram.com. And happy CES with luck. I know it's a beast, but I'm here if you guys need me, and our team's here if you need support. All right. Ciao.